My father said it at Thanksgiving dinner in front of the entire family. Not quietly, not as an aside, but loud enough that my aunt stopped mid-sentence and the room went silent. "You'll never be successful like your brother." He was looking right at me, fork in hand, as casual as if he'd just commented on the weather. My brother Marcus sat across from me, staring at his plate, not defending me, not saying a word. I was 23 years old, and in that moment, something inside me went cold and sharp. I smiled, set down my napkin, and said, "We'll see." Then I walked out of that house and didn't look back. 5 years later, I walked onto a stage in front of 3,000 people. The lights were blinding, the applause deafening. Behind me on a massive screen was my company's logo, the one I'd built from nothing. In the audience, 10th row center, sat my father. His face had gone completely white. He didn't know I'd sent him the ticket. He didn't know what he was about to witness. But I knew. I'd known for 5 years exactly how this moment would feel. Let me take you back. Because if you're going to understand what happened on that stage, you need to understand what it's like to grow up as the disappointment. The one who was always being compared, always coming up short, always hearing about how your brother did it better, faster, smarter. Have you ever been the child your parents apologize for? The one they don't brag about at parties? That was me for 23 years. Marcus was 3 years older and perfect, captain of the soccer team. Straight A's without trying. Class president, prom king. The kind of guy who made everything look effortless. When he got into Yale on a full ride, my parents threw a party. Invited 100 people. Dad gave a speech about how proud he was, how he always knew Marcus was destined for greatness. I was 15, standing in the corner with a plate of appetizers, watching them celebrate their golden child. When I got my college acceptance letters 2 years later, I brought them to the kitchen table quietly. State school, decent scholarship, nothing fancy. My father looked at them and said, "Well, at least you got in somewhere. Not congratulations, not pride, just acknowledgement that I'd cleared the lowest bar." My mother patted my shoulder and said, "Not everyone can be Marcus, honey. You'll find your path." I remember thinking that my path apparently meant being okay with mediocrity. College was where the comparisons got sharper. Marcus graduated Yale, got recruited by Goldman Sachs, started making 6 figures at 22. Every Sunday dinner became a Marcus update. His apartment in Manhattan, his work on a major deal, his girlfriend who went to Princeton. My parents would turn to me and ask, "How's school?" in this tone that suggested they already knew the answer would be disappointing. I was majoring in computer science, working part-time at the campus IT department, pulling decent grades. But compared to Marcus closing million-dollar deals, I might as well have been invisible. The summer after my junior year, I came home with an idea. I'd been working on an app, something I thought could actually be useful. Software that helped small businesses manage inventory and sales in one place, specifically designed for companies that couldn't afford enterprise solutions. I was excited about it. I'd shown it to a professor who thought it had real potential. I made the mistake of bringing it up at dinner. "That's nice," Dad said, not looking up from his steak. Marcus was just promoted to vice president. 25 years old, youngest VP in his division. I tried again. "I think this could actually be something," Professor Chen said. "Professor Chen isn't running a real business," Dad interrupted. "You're playing around with code. Marcus is making real money, building a real career. When are you going to get serious about your future?" That was the moment I should have left. But I was 21 and still believed I could make him proud. So I stayed. I kept trying. I graduated with honors, got a decent job at a tech company in Austin, started working on my app nights and weekends. Marcus got engaged to the Princeton girl. The wedding was huge, expensive, everything my parents had ever dreamed of. I was a groomsman. During the reception, Dad gave another speech about Marcus, about how he'd always known his son would achieve great things, how proud he was to see him building such a successful life. He never mentioned me once. I was standing right there in the wedding party, and my own father gave a 10-minute speech about success and family and didn't say my name. I went back to Austin after that wedding with something crystallized inside me. Anger, maybe. Determination, definitely. I stopped trying to get their approval and started working. Really working. I quit my job, took my savings, and went all in on the app. I slept 4 hours a night. I taught myself business strategy from YouTube videos and library books. I cold-called small businesses until my voice went hoarse. I got rejected 100 times before I got my first client. That first client was a small grocery store in Dallas. Owner's name was Maria. She'd been tracking inventory on paper and it was killing her. My software cut her administrative time in half. She told her supplier. The supplier told 3 other stores. Within 6 months, I had 50 clients. Within a year, I had 500. I hired my first employee. Then 5 more. Then 20. I didn't tell my family. When they called, which wasn't often, I kept it vague. Work's going well. Staying busy. They didn't ask for details. They were too busy talking about Marcus, who'd moved to a hedge fund and was making partner track money. At that point, I didn't care anymore. I wasn't building the company for them. I was building it for me, and for every person who'd been told they'd never measure up. By year 3, my software was running in 5,000 businesses across 8 states. We'd raised venture capital. My company was valued at $20 million. I bought a house. A real house. Not an apartment. With a yard and a mortgage that I could actually afford. I was 26 years old and I'd built something real. Something that mattered. Something that was mine. That Thanksgiving, 3 years after I'd walked out, my mother called. "We'd love for you to come home for the holidays. It's been so long. Marcus will be there with Sarah and the kids." I'd almost forgotten they existed in my life. I'd been so focused on building, on growing, on proving that one sentence wrong that I'd stopped checking their social media, stopped returning most calls. "I can't," I said. "Too much work." It wasn't a lie. We were closing a major acquisition. "You work too much," Mom said. "You need to find balance. Look at Marcus, he's so successful and he still makes time for family." I hung up and laughed. Actually laughed. Because she had no idea. None of them did. They were still comparing me to Marcus in their heads, still assuming I was the disappointment scrambling to keep up. They didn't know that my company had just been acquired by a major tech corporation for $85 million. They didn't know I'd negotiated to stay on as CEO. They didn't know that Forbes had called me for an interview. They didn't know anything because I'd stopped telling them anything. The acquisition closed in January. The press release went out. Forbes published the article, 30 Under 30. The founder building software for America's small businesses. My face was on the cover of the business section. The article detailed my net worth, my company's growth, my vision for expansion. It detailed how I'd started alone with an idea and turned it into a company serving 15,000 businesses. My phone exploded. Texts from old college friends, LinkedIn notifications, emails from reporters, and then, finally, a text from my father. "Saw the article. Call me." I didn't call. I was busy planning what came next. The tech conference was in March. It was the biggest in the industry. Tech Summit, they called it. 3,000 attendees, including every major player in the space. I'd been invited to give the keynote address. The topic, building success on your own terms. When they'd asked me to speak, I'd almost said no. Public speaking wasn't my thing. But then I thought about that Thanksgiving dinner. I thought about my father's words, and I said yes. I didn't tell my family I'd be speaking, but I did something calculated. I bought a ticket and had it mailed to my father's house. No note, no explanation. Just a ticket to Tech Summit, 10th row center, with a sticky note that said, "Thought you might want to see what real success looks like." The morning of the conference, I was backstage going through my notes when my phone buzzed. My mother. "Your father got a ticket to some conference? Did you send this?" "He's confused." I typed back, "Tell him to come. I'm speaking at 2 p.m. She replied, "Speaking? About what?" I didn't answer. Let them figure it out. I watched from backstage as the auditorium filled. 1,500 seats on the main floor, balcony seating for another 1,500. Tech executives, founders, journalists. And then I saw him. Row 10, center seat. My father, looking uncomfortable in a suit. My mother next to him looking around like she'd walked into the wrong building. Marcus wasn't there. Probably at work, closing another deal, unaware that anything was happening. The moderator introduced me. "Please welcome to the stage the CEO and founder of GridLink Solutions, featured on Forbes 30 Under 30, the woman who revolutionized inventory management for small businesses across America. Please welcome Andrea Matthews." The applause started and I walked out into those blinding lights. For a second I couldn't see anything but white light and shadows. Then my eyes adjusted and I looked right at row 10. Right at my father. He was staring at me like he'd seen a ghost. My mother's hand was over her mouth. I smiled. Not a warm smile, a smile that said, "Watch this." I didn't start with my company story. I started with his words. 5 years ago, my father told me I'd never be successful like my brother. He said it at Thanksgiving dinner in front of my entire family. I was 23 years old, working on an idea, trying to figure out my path. And the man who was supposed to believe in me looked me in the eye and told me I'd never measure up. The audience went quiet. You could hear the air conditioning humming. That was the last family dinner I attended. That was the moment I decided that his definition of success didn't have to be mine. I walked across the stage, screen behind me showing photos of my journey. My first office, a spare bedroom. My first employee, working at a folding table. The first storefront using my software. I built this company alone. No family money, no connections, no safety net. Just an idea that small businesses deserved better tools and someone who was too stubborn to quit when people said it wouldn't work. The photos shifted. Our current office, a full floor downtown. My team, now 80 people strong. Screenshots of businesses across the country using GridLink. Today, GridLink serves 15,000 small businesses in 38 states. We've helped them increase efficiency by an average of 40%. We've saved them millions in lost inventory and administrative costs. Last month, we were acquired for $85 million. And I'm still here as CEO, still growing, still building. The audience erupted in applause. I let it wash over me, but I never took my eyes off row 10. My father wasn't clapping. He was sitting perfectly still, face pale, hands gripped on the armrests like he might fall through the floor. My mother was crying, but I couldn't tell if they were proud tears or shocked tears or something else entirely. The tech industry loves stories about genius founders and overnight success, I continued. But most of us aren't geniuses. Most of us don't have overnight success. Most of us are just people who were told we'd never make it, and we decided to prove them wrong. Not because we wanted revenge, but because we wanted to prove something to ourselves, that we were capable, that we were worth believing in, that their limited vision of our potential didn't have to limit what we actually achieved. I talked for 45 minutes about building the company, about the mistakes I'd made, about the lessons I'd learned, about how success isn't about being better than someone else, it's about being better than you were yesterday. The whole time I felt my father's stare like a physical weight. I didn't look at him again. I didn't need to. He was going to sit there for 45 minutes and listen to what I'd built, while he'd been busy telling me I'd never build anything. When I finished, the standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. People rushed the stage afterward. Reporters wanted quotes. Other founders wanted advice. Investors wanted meetings. I shook hands, posed for photos, gave my contact information to what felt like 100 people. Through it all, I watched my parents in my peripheral vision. They hadn't moved from their seats. They sat there while the auditorium emptied around them, just sitting there like they'd been turned to stone. Finally, when the crowd had thinned, my father stood. He walked toward the stage slowly, my mother trailing behind him. I was still up there, talking to the conference organizer, but I watched him approach. He stopped at the foot of the stage, looking up at me. For a long moment, we just stared at each other. Then he said, "I didn't know." His voice cracked. "I didn't know any of this. I didn't know you'd built something successful?" I finished. "Yeah, I did." Turns out I didn't need to be like Marcus. I just needed to be myself. "Andrea, he started, but I held up my hand. "I didn't invite you here for an apology," I said. "I invited you here so you could see what 5 years of being told I'd never succeed looks like, so you could see what happens when someone takes your doubt and turns it into fuel." I stepped down from the stage, standing level with him now. "You were wrong about me. You were wrong for 5 years. And you never bothered to check if maybe, just maybe, you'd underestimated your own daughter." My mother was openly crying now. "We're so proud of you," she whispered. "Now you are," I said. "Now that there's something to be proud of. Now that I've succeeded in a way you can finally understand and quantify. But where were you when I was struggling? Where were you when I quit my job to chase this dream? Where were you every Sunday when you talked about Marcus for an hour and gave me 5 minutes of obligatory questions?" They didn't have an answer. "I didn't do this for you," I said, and my voice was steady. "I did this for me, and for every kid who's been compared to a sibling and told they don't measure up. You don't get to claim this. You don't get to tell your friends about your successful daughter when you spent 5 years telling that daughter she'd fail." I walked past them, not angry, not bitter, just done. The conference organizer was waiting to take me to a press junket. I had interviews lined up, meetings scheduled, a celebration dinner with my team planned for that evening. I had a life full of people who'd believed in me when it mattered. My parents didn't fit into that life anymore. Maybe they never had. They called that night, left voicemails. My father's voice shaking. "I was wrong. I was so wrong. Please call me back." My mother. "We want to fix this. Please let us try." I listened to the messages once, then I saved them. Not to be cruel, but to remember. To remember what it felt like to finally, definitively prove that their judgment had been worthless. I didn't call back that week. Or the next. I was too busy running my company, doing interviews, fielding acquisition offers from competitors who'd seen my keynote. Forbes wanted a follow-up. TechCrunch wrote a profile. My face was suddenly everywhere in the tech world. The kid they'd written off was now someone everyone wanted to know. Marcus called. That was unexpected. "I saw your keynote," he said. "Someone sent me the video." I waited. "It's impressive. What you built. I didn't know you were doing all this." "You never asked," I said. None of you asked. Silence on the line. They're destroyed, he finally said. Mom and Dad, they've been calling me crying, asking how they fix this. They want you to come home, to talk. I am home, I said. I bought a house in Austin. I have a company to run. That house where they still compare us at dinner? That's not home anymore. Fair enough, Marcus said. And then, quieter. For what it's worth, I always knew you were smarter than them gave you credit for. I should have said something at those dinners. I didn't. That's on me too. I appreciated that more than I expected to. You were just being their favorite, I said. That wasn't your fault. Maybe not, he said, but I benefited from it while you suffered. That's worth acknowledging. We talked for an hour. Really talked, maybe for the first time as adults. He admitted how suffocating their expectations were, how every success felt like pressure to succeed even more. I admitted how invisible I'd felt, how much it hurt to never be enough. We didn't fix our family that night, but we started understanding each other. My parents kept trying. They showed up at my office once. My assistant called me. There are 2 people here who say they're your parents? I told her to let them wait in the lobby. I had a meeting. When I finally came down an hour later, they were still there, sitting on the modern furniture looking completely out of place among the startup energy and tech bros. This is quite a setup, Dad said, looking around. Yeah, I said. Built it from nothing. We went to coffee. Neutral ground. They apologized. Really apologized. Listed specific moments they'd failed me. Times they'd dismissed my dreams or compared me unfavorably to Marcus. We thought we were motivating you, Mom said. We thought if we pushed you to be more like Marcus, you'd try harder. All you did was teach me that I'd never be good enough, I said. So I stopped trying to be what you wanted and started being what I wanted. They're trying now. It's awkward, tentative. They come to Austin sometimes. They tour my office. They meet my team. They sit in the back of conference rooms when I give talks. They're learning who I actually am instead of who they wanted me to be. Some days I think we'll rebuild something real. Some days I think too much was broken for too long. But here's what I know for certain. I don't need their validation anymore. I needed it at 23. At 28, I've built something that speaks for itself. The company is growing, the team is strong, the mission matters. I'm good at what I do, and I didn't need anyone's permission to become that person. My father was wrong. I am successful. Not like Marcus, not like anyone else. I'm successful like me, in a way that's entirely mine. And that's better than any comparison could ever be. If you've ever been the disappointing child, the one who didn't live up, the one who was always being measured against a sibling and coming up short, this story is for you. You don't need to be like them. You don't need their definition of success. You just need to be stubborn enough to prove that their limited vision of your potential was exactly that. Limited. Your ceiling is as high as you build it. Not as high as they tell you it is. Tell me in the comments, have you ever been compared to a sibling and told you'd never measure up? Did you prove them wrong, or are you still building toward that moment? I read every story. You're not alone. And if you want more stories about people who turned doubt into determination and built something extraordinary from nothing, subscribe. There's always another underestimated kid becoming exactly who they were meant to be.